Hello again, and welcome to the last panel discussion. This is an exciting panel on the topic Best Strategies to Monetize Your Game. We have with us a power packed panel consisting of Prithvi Raj, Associate Director, Strategic Media Client Leader Nielsen, as the moderator. Joining him is Ankit Gupta, Head of Apps Partnership Google India, Afsar Ahmad, co-founder Gameberry Labs, Seemant Shankar, co-founder SportsUnity Private Limited, Rahul and Bhardwaj, co-founder and CEO of Junglee Games, Arpit Jain, founder and CEO GreedyGames. I now hand over the proceedings to the moderator, Mr. Prithvi Raj.
Thanks, Afsar. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for sticking with us. I know it's a little late, it's post office hours, 7 p.m. and all. Actually, wait, that's not really true anymore, is it? Because sure, before the pandemic, when you say 7 p.m., you think, okay, day is nearly done and you're wrapping up if not done. But I think post the pandemic, I'm not sure when our day really ends. So, a good evening still to everyone. We have an excellent panel with us and a really fascinating topic, which is again, as Amrita said, best strategies around monetizing your game. Now, being with Nielsen, I've had the privilege of tracking the smartphone space for a couple of years now, and this year has certainly been crazier than most, especially for gaming, right? We've seen a significant increase not just in the reach of people playing games, but also the time they spend playing games. We've seen growth in real money games. We've seen, a lot of skill-based games growing. We've seen social gaming that's really picked up. So something that I'm interested in is also this topic. So I can't wait to hear what our panelists have to say. So to start with, let's just define the scope. So when we say monetization, and Rahul, maybe I can direct this to you and perhaps Afsar as well. When I say monetization, what are the different ways of monetizing a game?
Sure. Thanks for that, Prithvi. I'll kick off with we will speak, or I will speak specifically about the real money. And yes, it's dinner time. Sorry, that's my son in the middle now. That's the beauty of doing these calls, right? Right away. Like the minute we start, there's someone who wants to jump in. So I was saying I'll start with the skill gaming space and how we monetize in that. And then of course, please take over for the social and in-app. It's really straightforward. When two people play against each other, there's an opportunity for each one to bank on their skill to win the game. And we provide an opportunity for you to develop value out of that. So, Prithvi, you and I can play a game of chess. I bring in 10 rupees, you bring in 10 rupees, we play the game of chess. You win, you take my 10 rupees, right? And that's a fair game because your skill is for you to decide if you want to put 10 rupees against your own skill. And it's fair for me to say if I want to play you, right? Maybe you're a okay player, maybe you're a great player, but I get to decide if I want to play you or not and bring in the 10 rupees. So between us, there's an exchange of a game that's a skill game, of course, the game of chess. In our case, we utilize a lot of games that are legally outlined by games, in the law, rummy, or whether it's chess or it's pool or carom. But we allow ourselves to provide these games to users as a platform. And now this is where Junglee Games comes in. So Prithvi, again, when you come in to play chess and I come in to play chess and I bring in 10 rupees, you bring in 10 rupees, we play chess on Junglee Games chess game. And when you win my 10 rupees, you win the 10, but 2 rupees is taken by Junglee Games as a platform fee. So you win 8 rupees. So that's the business model, or that's the revenue generation, mechanism that skill gaming companies use. It's not just us, it's every gaming company that out there that does any form of cash-based skill gaming to that effect. So that's pretty much the one way you could monetize your game, if it's a game of skill, of course. Afsar?
Yeah, Rahul, thank you so much. So in terms of free to play gaming, if you think about, we can divide it into multiple types of monetization. The best, which I would say is, and which ideally a developer should first look at, is the advantage or leverage type, where if it's a single player game, you're giving some kind of a leverage, additional benefits to maybe like a power up thing. If it's against somebody, it's more like a leverage that I can have a slight leverage above the other player. So in social games, especially in case of Ludo, for example, I would say we have a very small leverage kind of a feature which helps us monetize really well, and that you can see in a lot of other games as well. So advantage and leverage is the first and the most strongest. It could be in terms of extra moves, how it happens in match 3, or it could be like a stronger weapon in terms of one-on-one PvP games. It could be time-based leverage where you can speed up very quickly. So games like Clash of Clans, these guys monetize really well with time-based leverage. The second type of offering can be intricate, more like what Rahul was saying, where you have certain currency and you offer that currency as part of playing that game, choosing to play the game. But to my experience, I mean, I haven't seen Intrigate working so well. It is more like a ticket mechanics, and people actually hate it a lot. So the more you can avoid it, the better it is. And the third one is the cosmetics, basically vanity based monetization that people generally use. And across these three offerings, you will see different types of models being used. For example, microtransactions can be there, subscription can be there, ads can be there, and all of these will be always leading you towards either of these offerings most cases.
Sorry, it took me a moment to unmute there. So thank you, Rahul and Afsar, for that. Afsar, sorry, just a follow up because you raised an interesting point. I'm not too familiar with leverage. If you can maybe spend a little bit more just time explaining what that is, because I'm familiar with cosmetics, so that
Yeah.
you have it doesn't necessarily improve your gameplay. It's just more for flex and it's just more for just the cosmetic of it. But when you say a leverage, could you just like maybe just give me an
Yes,
example
absolutely.
of sorry, I'm
So
just
for
new at this.
example, I will take example of our game as well directly. So for example, in Ludo, if you've noticed, we have an in-game currency which gives you an option of rolling the dice again without the other player actually knowing about that. So, but we do not give you an unlimited option of doing that. We just give you like 5 options in a span of 45 minutes. So that's an additional leverage that you have over the other player, and it is something which people actually look forward to, where as a payer, especially payers look forward and love to have power of leverages and advantages like this.
Uh, Understood. No, makes sense. Um, so no, then this is helpful. Another another monetization format that I'm familiar with is also the ad-supported part. So maybe Seemant, if I can direct this to you and maybe Ankit, which is, as a game developer, when and how should one decide which model to choose? You've got the real money games, you've got the ad-supported, you've also got the uh, pay to win, if you will, and cosmetics. So like different combinations, right? So um, and I know you're coming from one point of view as well, but if you can just give us a sense on what could be some of the best practice in terms of what model should you choose and at what point.
Sure, Ankit, you want to go first? I'll just follow on later.
Sure. So I think great points from Afsar and Rahul, right? How I would like to divide the monetization would be the user-led monetization and ecosystem or advertiser-led monetization, right? And if I put myself in the publisher's shoes, what I would do is I would look at macro trends and then see that what I am bringing to the table, right? So when I say macro trends, I will see that more and more users are playing games now. They have better phones. They are spending more on games. So that's a positive trend. So that looks lucrative. If I see advertiser trends, more and more advertisers are turning to digital, and they are and better technologies are combining users and advertisers, right? So that is a positive trend. So if I see at macro level, both the trends seem very, very positive from user and advertiser perspective. So then, as a publisher, I think how I would look at it is that what is my expertise? What is my area of expertise? What I am bringing to the table? Am I very familiar with a particular country trend? Like, I know people there, what they would like? Do I have a specialization in a particular game genre that I understand that genre? I can build that genre. I think that should be the questions which publishers need to ask themselves and their team. And then there will be natural gravitation towards a particular monetization type which that category offers, right? So for example, if you are in hardcore game, then obviously in-app purchases and and rewarded ads would make a lot of sense. If you're in hyper casual games, then you can have banner and interstitial ads as well as rewarded and IAP economy, right? So like long answer short, I think the overall trends are really good, macro trends. What publisher need to see is that what is their area of expertise, and some genres will offer different types of monetization opportunities. Yeah, over to you, Singh.
Sure. So just following on with what Ankit just said, I completely agree with him. And being in the gaming industry for the last 3 years, I've also seen a very dramatic trend on how monetization has been impacting the user base and the kind of user mindset that you're getting when you actually launch a game in the country. From an India perspective, yes, we believe that you have one option that you have to look at is what is the entire longevity or time to play for a game that you have launched. If you have a longish level, like for example, a level which is it'll take about 15 minutes to play, 10 minutes to play, that gives you a lot of scope for either IAP or interstitial ads to come in. Also, rewarded video ads can actually pay a very big difference if your game mechanics support it. So what I've noticed is that you have to understand what is the organic game mechanics that you have. You can't really force fit one of the solutions inside a game just because it is giving a competitor better revenue and you believe that it is something that you should also have in your game. That's one of the key mistakes that I've seen people who have put in. You have to also understand what is the mindset of the audience which is coming inside. For example, for the real money gaming, we have real money trivia. So we have launched that in the country. One of the first of the categories, in the real money trivia segment. And we've noticed that people who come into real money trivia are coming in there for winning money. It's more about the charm of winning something. The euphoria of winning something is more prominent as compared to the user experience of playing the level or the euphoria of ending a level, right? So if you have something like an Angry Birds, the euphoria is there to end the level. That's where the in-app purchases come in, because the mechanics have these built in that you can buy a better bird, you can buy a weapon, or for PUBG you can buy something which can give you an added advantage over your competitor. As far as real money gaming is concerned, what we have noticed is that with the kind of the turnaround time is very quick for trivia. We have about 8 questions to 10 questions in each level that takes less than a minute to play. There isn't enough scope for an ad to be consumed. There is enough scope for an in-app purchase to be consumed in that particular case. So we've noticed that people generally switch over to topping up their wallets inside the app. There is a higher push towards doing that as compared to a free mode where you have to consume a couple of ads to be able to play further. So again, it all depends upon what is your mass. I think your demography makes a very big difference here. You have to be very careful about what is the segment of audiences that you're trying to target. Are you targeting brain surgeons? Are you targeting teenagers? Are you targeting women? So you have to understand what is the mentality of those people and kind of build the game mechanics to support that mentality. So according to me, I don't think there is really a one size fits all answer to that question. I think it has a lot to do with understanding. Again, capturing the right amount of data is very important. When you have launched your game in beta for a few days, understand what is the flow that the user is taking. Where are they getting stuck? Where do they need those painkillers inside the entire journey? So that is where you have an opportunity of either putting an ad there or getting someone to pay $1 to buy something, whatever it is, and allow them to get that experience in a seamless fashion.
I just wanted to add, sorry, Prithvi, I just wanted to add that there are 2 ways to approach gaming, right? It's the left brain, right brain thing. You can go with the creative side, which is that if you are making a really creative game that people enjoy to play, they'll pay for it. There are plenty of games and examples out there where the developer didn't have to think about data and didn't have to think about in-app purchase or monetization at all, right? It was just a work of art. So I just want to say to the audience, we don't even know who's here, can't even see. But if any of you have an idea, don't worry about it. If you can't think of data or you can't think of mechanics and where to monetize the user, if you have an idea, you should just produce it because it could be a work of art. Yes, there is, of course, the other way to approach it, which is the data-oriented point of view. And that, of course, allows the other side, which is not so creative, maybe not so artistic, to monetize and allow to understand where the user can be hooked while playing the game to go ahead and produce a screen that says, okay, you enjoy this, now pay now to play more, right? which is a very basic mechanism to monetize a game. So I just wanted to add that piece there, that there is an artistic side of it. We don't have to talk about it, but it does exist.
No, I'm glad you brought it up, Rahul, because sometimes we tend to look at just the business numbers of it and lose focus on maybe the core reasons of why many of us got into gaming in the first place, right? At the development or partaking in it. So I'm glad you brought that up. And interesting points. So building on what we said, just taking forward in terms of in-app purchases, right? And maybe Afsar, if I can come back to you on this, and Rahul, Ankit, I'm going to pick your brain as well on this, which is, are there specific categories of games that are most likely to see in-app purchases, and why would that be?
Yeah, so Prithvi, thanks. I mean, thanks for this question. Pretty interesting because a lot. I think Ankit will add a lot of points over here because he might be having more visibility on how things are happening across categories. From my understanding, there are few things that I can point out. One thing is, it's not necessarily true that a particular category only monetizes really well. Uh, Whereas, if you look from a different perspective, from opportunity perspective, I would say if you're looking at other spaces which are not monetizing so well at this moment, but there is huge user demand over there, people want to play those games, then it's a great opportunity to actually look into those areas and try to figure out a monetization model over there. Few examples I can quote is one of the example could be Ludo itself, because before we entered the market, there was no Ludo game which was monetizing so well, and after we have introduced our monetization tactics, there are things that have come up, and a lot of companies have started adopting that same technique as well in terms of monetization. It has helped the whole Ludo space to grow as well, because now you have more power to spend money with the between the users and acquire some more users in that space, right? So there is a lot of scope and opportunity lying in other categories which might not be monetizing so well. Another example could be Golf Clash. People were playing golf games a lot, but if you check what Golf Clash did, was they brought a good monetization tactics around the game, and it has worked really well for them. And now you'll see that there are 4 or 5 games doing the same thing in the golf space, and suddenly the golf sports space has exploded larger than it was. So category, I think Ankit can elaborate more on that, but I would say that it is important from developer point of view that we look into opportunities where we can actually monetize for future. And like Rahul said, and it's at the end of the day, we became a developer because we loved building games, and that's the most important thing, I would say.
Yeah. Plus one to what Afsar said, right? I think it's more about that how much engagement you can create in a game. If you have good engagement, then there would be players who would be willing to pay for it in terms of real money through in-app purchases, or in terms of time by watching rewarded ads, right? Or spending more time in your app, in your game overall. So it's about creating that engagement, creating that hook that users come to your game again and again. Obviously, like there are generic trends where you will see hardcore games have more engagement, more time spent per user, whereas hyper casual games are quick churning games. But what I want to refer to, what Rahul said, actually it resonated a lot. That that there is a winner bias, right? We only see winners and say, okay, this works, right? But in retrospect, when we go and see those games, like, did we think that it would work? Like, did we predict that it can work? Like, there are a lot of examples, right? Not only in mobile gaming, like see Minecraft, like when it launched, nobody thought it could be something which would work. Or if you see Angry Birds, like there are multiple examples of things. And as Afsar correctly said, they have actually innovated themselves a lot in Ludo. Nobody thought that Ludo can generate so much of IAP revenue. So my input here would be that innovation is the key. If you can engage users and if you can create good gameplay, then users would be willing to pay, whether through time or whether through real money, in terms of getting that experience from your game.
So Prithvi, I'll just add a small point after, to what Ankit has said. So there are two ways of looking into it. One is the push model, where developers are pushing the game onto the users, and there is a pull model where users are pulling the games. I mean, they are making the developers develop the game. I would say bigger developers can push the games. Smaller developer can pull and take advantage of what the user are demanding.
I think one other thing that I'd like to add here, I don't know if we really have the time to do that or not. But one other thing I also want to add here is that, again, as I mentioned, the game mechanics make a very big difference here. We have tried out instances where, let's say, within the game, while you're competing with another user on the other end, can you buy something in real time and just get that slight competitive advantage? We build that impulse inside of you as you play. So, you need this hammer. The only way to really win the level in a rapid fashion is if you would have access to this hammer, and this hammer costs $10, for example, right? The problem with that comes in is that the Indian payment systems also have a big problem, which is the OTP, right? So can you really go through those 3, 4, 5 steps of friction in order to make an in-app purchase? So even though a user wants to buy that hammer for $20, the friction prevents him from doing that, right? Same thing, can I watch a 1 minute video to get that hammer while the game is in progress, right? So you have to also figure that bit out. Can I put the other guy on pause, let Afsar watch this 10-minute Palmolive ad, and while Prithvi is waiting for him to hit him, you can't really do that either, right? So you have to understand that, okay, fine, can I get a person to prepay and give him the confidence that you can get your money back in case you don't use it? But that has worked for us, right? So what we've noticed is we have allowed users to deposit money and take that money out of the wallet without cutting any commission out of there. But it gives them a safeguard that at that time when I want that 1 rupee hammer, I can just pay for it instantly and just buy it, right? So again, like I said, the Indian diaspora, along with the regulations, would make it very different. You can't take a case study from Europe and bring it to India. It may or may not work like that. You have to really understand the entire user journey. You have to put yourself in the shoes of a user, probably build a prototype, use it, put all those nag screens in the middle, whatever you get in a regular payment system, and see what the experience is. Are you feeling pissed? Are you feeling happy? If you're feeling happy, go for it, implement it, and I'm sure it's going to work.
No, thank you for that. I think that's a bunch of really interesting points of view. Rahul, is there anything you wanted to add on that? Because there's something small I want to just talk about in a bit. But
Yeah, about my son, right? Who watches videos so he can earn items while playing Jurassic World. So it's a real deal. Kids have figured out that they don't have to pay for anything. They can download the game and watch. So what really works for monetization of, I would probably maybe say 18 and under, right? In his case, he's 4 years old. Is the ad economy. Just the right moment showing an ad and saying, watch this ad, we'll give you this hammer. Watch this ad, we'll give you this gun. Or watch this ad, in his case, we'll give you this dinosaur. He's so nuts about all his Tyrannosaurus Rex and all these things. So ads do work, but they're more towards the younger side, right? The younger generation that don't have the instant payment mechanism, as Seemant said. And of course, the older generation is like, here's my credit card, just bill me. I don't want to think about it. Go ahead and get it done, and I'm willing to play forward. So I think you want to decide whether your game, as you said, focuses on the older generation, the younger generation, who it's targeting, and based on that, decide what monetization. A serious a game that's for the older generation with ad monetization won't work as much, right? Because people are willing to pay. They're like, why am I seeing this ad? The younger generation will be okay, so show them the ad. So you have to make that very critical decision when you're developing your game.
I was going to take a pause and say that, a lot of the very, very valid points, because it's just essentially I'm seeing that there's no one size fits all. And that's like maybe a mistake that an outsider like me looks at, which is, can't we just do this or that, like, which is better? But you're right, it's about the type of game. It's about the fact that is it a strategy? Is it like a first person shooter? Is it more of like a very casual game? What is the time between rounds? What is the typical engagement a person has? Plus, what is the demographic that plays the game and the occasion of when they're playing the game? So it's a lot of factors to take into account, a lot of data to really drive that decision. So maybe the right answer might be a combination of all at different points in time for specific users in certain conditions, which doesn't help anybody I know, but it's generally I think that's what makes it pretty interesting. I'm just going to talk about a question on on essentially advertising, because we did touch upon rewarded videos, and I'm sure there's more types. So I want to just get a sense of what are the different types of innovative advertising strategies that you've come across, and how do you ensure that the ad doesn't break the user or the gamer's experience? And maybe Arpit, if I can start with you on this, because again, a lot of experience that your organization has done in this space. So if I can just ask you, and maybe circle back to you, Ankit, on this ad question.
Sure. Thanks, Prithvi. So yeah, I mean, just taking it forward from what Rahul mentioned, that obviously it's an art to make games, and you enjoy making games, and that's why you are in it. But there's also science, a lot of science involved, right? And the science of it is that if you look at the non-real money gaming games which are out there on the Google Play Store, at least in countries like India and where the majority of the user bases are coming, only less than 1% users end up doing any in-app purchases. And even that number might be higher if you look at the overall user base, right? So from what we have experienced, obviously each of the game type in each of the category, the geographies where you're distributing the games, they actually put a lot of you need to put a lot of emphasis on that while you're selecting your monetization strategy. But like you mentioned towards the end, that it is probably a mix of getting the right ads so that the user experience is also maintained, and obviously it is helping the user to either go further in the game or feel like they can still enjoy the game as long as they want without paying any real bucks to make sure that the user is retained onto you. Specifically for us, we work with all kinds of advertising. Native ads is something that that's our core focus in. And with native ads, we see that it opens up opportunities to place ads on real estate, which is not being utilized by either pop-ups or banners or full page interstitials, keeping the users interested still in moving ahead in the game, and by watching that ad or by going through that ad, monetizing the developers and keeping the sustainable project going on, and adding more features onto it. So like I mentioned, in terms of ad formats, apart from the rewarded ad, which actually works pretty well across the gaming genres. In terms of display, Ankit touched upon interstitials. They work pretty well in the kind of games like hyper casual games where that the user is probably not there for a long period of time, but he's going to have more engagements or more sessions within a short period of time. So you can basically monetize by using interstitials, and then with banners and native ads, you can actually still keep the user being a part of the experience, take the game experience, and parallelly monetize with these ads. Obviously, one disclaimer or one thing which I would like to mention here, and we can again pick it up later in the session, is that with advertising, you would need a certain threshold of users to be able to ensure you're actually getting some ROI back. Because with different scales, your LTVs might also change. And unless you have a certain threshold of users, which Ankit might be the better person to tell, you would not actually get the real value of what advertising can pay you back. And again, just to end this here, it's not just only about advertising in India or in countries where users are not paying that much, but even if you check out the trends in the last few years, especially with hyper casual games, they have done very, very well, especially in tier one countries, with the kind of eCPM, the kind of ad revenues that they are able to make and explode in terms of their user bases. So that's something that I would like to mention.
Yeah, thanks, Arpit, for that. Right, and just adding to that, as Arpit said, there are different formats, right? And there are innovations also coming in these formats, like adaptive banners, where it takes a full screen size so that it looks good. Arpit's company specializes in creating those innovative native ads, good design native ads, so that it blends into the system, right? But just few points, right? I think Seemant also pointed this out earlier, that there are some obvious things, right? While you're playing a game, where are you placing that rewarded ad or that in-app purchase option, right? Say if you are playing a board game, say a mystery room game or a word game, and you want a tip, and do you watch a rewarded ad at that point of time or go for a purchase at that point of time, or you build it in advance so that there is no friction between the gameplay. So I think these are some very common sense things which publishers should keep in mind while designing the ad behavior for a user. I think the more important thing is that how you can use data to back some of these decisions, right? So a fundamental thing which we try to tell publishers is think about ad density or ad frequency, right? At what frequency you are showing ads. A lot of publishers try to think in terms of ad placements, whereas we are trying to make them think from ad frequency perspective, right? So see the real data that how many ads a user actually saw. And publishers would be surprised. Some of the publishers were surprised they were showing so many ads, and some of the publishers were surprised, okay, they were not showing even one ad to a user per day. So those were the kind of contrasting statistics which we got. And there are multiple ways you can actually see that which ad placement is giving most interaction with those ads and which is not. So keeping a close eye on those data points, that how users are interacting with your ads, and using Firebase or other analytical tools also, you can see that how much time users spent after clicking that ad off your app, right? So you can see that whether that user actually interacted with that ad or not. With good ad placements, also the CTRs are 1% to 2%, right? So it's only 1 or 2% of your users who are interacting with the ads. The way a publisher should think is not how to retain user, but how to make an engaging user experience. I think this is shifting from a negative mindset to a positive mindset. That how you create an engaging user experience is something which I think should be the focus, and using data to make sure that the ad placements are not interfering in those in that engagement, or are not spoiling that experience is critical. And there are new and new data forms, data solutions which are coming, like smart segmentation, right, where you can identify whether this user is a paying user or a non-paying user, and then you can have different ad experience for both types of users. So these kind of solutions are also available. You can use Firebase predictions to see if this user is going to churn or not, and whatnot, right? So essentially, some common sense things which you should avoid to spoil user experience, and then use data to make sure that you are giving the right user experience, right ad density, right ad placement to the users.
Yeah, that's a good point here. I mean, some of the best publishers who monetize really, really well, what we've seen is they use A/B testing a lot. So whatever new ad, whatever new feature they're going to roll out, whatever new placement, they would just put it on 2%, 3%, 5% users and see how their retention metrics are getting changed, how much are they actually able to make out of the users, and then they start rolling things out to the majority of the users. So I mean, what we've seen is that sometimes publishers, based on their just inclusion or underutilize ads by overemphasizing on the UX. You should absolutely go with the data, like Ankit mentioned, and just see how it actually affects your users and whether or not it's actually taking your users away or actually increasing retention in some cases, like the rewarded video ads.
No, certainly interesting. I was just curious though, because you mentioned native, and I think intuitively I like the idea of native because it doesn't take me out of the experience at all. There's no click out. It's just within the space. But is there a risk that it's so native that the gamer doesn't notice? And how do you kind of test for that? And I know I'm slightly deviating from the topic here, but I'm just curious about this.
So I'll just keep it very, very short. I mean, if you observe the top app publishers in the world, including Facebook, Google's own apps, Snapchat, etc., everyone use only native ads in their apps, and obviously they figured out a way why it works well for their users, why it is the highest revenue generating format for their apps. The difficult part in native is that there is a lot of PNC that you can put in, a lot of different combinations, a lot of different optimizations that you can do, because you can actually customize the entire experience to the team, right? So that's why it takes a lot of bandwidth to be able to strike the right design, right template in native ads. But definitely is something that most of the biggest publishers who make revenues from ads are using right now.
Oh, interesting. I'm just going to take a pause. I got a couple of interesting questions from the audience as well. I'll just take one now and I'll build up on it. So the question is basically, how do you think tier two cities can be used to drive growth in the gaming industry? So I'll take this question split into two types. One is in terms of how do we see tier two being this growth engine in terms of users, and the second part is in terms of monetization. The second monetizing via the ad supported route, or do we actually look at real money games or in-app purchases from that? So two parts. One is in the user bit, and the second is in terms of the monetization part. Anyone wants to just take a stab at that first?
So I can give the real money gaming perspective on that. So we get a substantial percentage of our revenue from tier two, and that is quite surprising for us too. And if you come to look at it, a majority of the paying population are coming in from places like Bijnor and all of these, lesser known towns. The reason being is that first of all, the penetration of internet is quite recent in those cities. It is not like the urban population. So all of a sudden you are going to a person who probably was working on a 2G connection up till for let's say the 20 years of his life, all of a sudden now has access to 4G. He has access to all that bandwidth, has access to all those smartphones, cheaper smartphones, which are pretty powerful. The biggest consumer of one of the biggest consumers, we all know the other one, of bandwidth is gaming, right? So you would either watch videos, which is going to be YouTube, or maybe your Netflix or Amazon Primes, or you would consume games. Now, the other thing about that we've noticed about tier two population is that they also have limited avenues of entertainment in their cities. I'm talking about pre-pandemic. Again, post-pandemic, things have changed substantially. We've all become tier two now. So the idea is that when you come to look at it from that perspective, the mobile gaming experience opens up a very, very huge door for entertainment for these people. And it's quite surprising because there are lesser modes of alternate entertainment. There is more dispensable income for games, right? So what the $2,000 that I would go and spend on a beer is, well, they do drink beer there too, but we would probably spend $4,000 to $5,000 going out on Friday night, whereas they would be spending $5,000 $6,000 on a game, and we have a lot of games which are experiencing those kind of LTVs. So the idea is the other very interesting thing that we have noticed, and I hope it makes sense to that question. It is not exactly a tier two question. We actually did a very, very good analysis of who our paying customers are, and we actually started reaching out to them, especially the high rollers, if I were to come to it, because I wanted to first validate why are they doing what they're doing, okay, and to understand what is the mindset that they're coming up with, so that I can target them better, I can target similar people better. When we actually started calling our high rollers, we noticed that a majority, I won't say majority, but a very large segment of our high roller population were the panwalas. Okay. So we were figuring out why is that happening? Okay. All of a sudden, why is this guy spending like $5,000 a day on our platform, right? Whereas people who are coming from the semi-elitist segments and elitist segments are not spending more than $500 a day, right? So when we started talking to them, we realized that ever since demonetization, everyone is on Paytm, everyone is on a mobile wallet. Okay. Everyone pays them on Paytm. Where do they use their Paytm balance? They have no other place to use it apart from by playing games, right? Because they're not the ones who are going to pay their they pay their phone bills through Paytm and all of that, but their avenues of using that money are far more limited to our avenues of using that money, right? So if you have $10,000 in your Paytm wallet just lying there, okay, and you don't want to transfer it to your bank account because that attracts a commission from Paytm, right? What do you really do? You have 10,000 dispensable income, friction free, no OTP, right? Which is basically how you use that. You use that in a mobile game. So agreed, it is not just tier two. I think it is more of a demography thing. If we can build more inclusion in your game. Try to understand that, maybe build more Indianized games. Right? Why don't you build a PUBG which is completely based on the Mahabharata? Maybe that will work, right? And that will actually attract a very good segment of the tier 2, tier 3 population to your platform.
$1 million idea right there, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there you go. It's out there now. Okay.
Yeah, maybe Prithvi, do we have some time? I can add perspective also.
We do.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
great. So a lot of things I will resonate with what Seemant said, and but just let me start with the user perspective, right? So as more and more users are coming from tier 2 cities on mobile, there's definitely affinity for them to play games, right? And their mobile phones are becoming better, as we already mentioned, right? Uh, I think it's about creating that right Um, experience for those users. And you take like example of FMCG industry, right? It was very hard for them to sell their products, say in rural India. What they came up with was a sachet example, right? So 1 rupee sachet, it sells like crazy. You get volumes from that market, and you make a lot of money. Similarly, if you see, like if you price it right and you give the right engagement and positioning for your product, it is going to give you a lot of revenue, right? And the per ad revenue or per user IAP revenue might be less, but if that user is spending enough time on your game, then eventually you will get a lot of revenue from that user, right? And what I really don't like right now in the market is that I see very less innovation which is there to engage these kind of users, right? So, for example, why we cannot build, say, a mystery room or a treasure hunt sort of a thing using Maps API for Dholpur, right? People would go crazy and they would like love that kind of a experience which you can have from tier 2 cities native. So what I'm saying is it might not be a very great idea, it might fail, but what I'm saying is that I think we can have a lot of innovation which can attract tier 2 tier 3 cities users engagement. I think that is still lacking in the market, which can give better long term LT.
Prithvi, if you have a minute, I can add another perspective to it, if it's okay.
Go ahead. I think it's a good topic, so we'll stretch on a little bit more. So that's cool.
So I'm glad that somebody brought this up because it's pretty interesting. So one of the examples when I was surprised, especially, was when one of the users from our games from Jamshedpur, she sent her payment receipt of all the payments she has done recently, and she did not receive the coins that she recently bought on Ludo Star. And I was looking at those payment receipt, and I could see 3 to 4 pages in a month with Coinmaster Ludo Star, Coinmaster Ludo Star, Coinmaster Ludo Star, Coinmaster Ludo Star, and all the 3 pages were filled with that. And I was surprised that somebody sitting in Jamshedpur is paying so much money on our game. So it's a myth if people say that tier 1 people are playing and paying. Tier 2 people, tier 3 people are more loyal players, and they will form communities around it. They will invite their friends because they want to build relationships, and especially for social games, I would say it helps a lot in case of tier 2 and tier 3 because they will form their community. They will invite them to Facebook group. They will help the other guys get on board. They will become leaders, co-leaders, and they'll start getting
Influencers.
creating. Yes, absolutely, something like that.
Wow.
So I have a question for you, Afsar. If you're developing a game, how do you develop it just for tier 2? Or what are the things to keep in mindset that this game should be focused on tier 2?
So Rahul, I think that's a even more difficult question, I would say. And to me personally, I don't have an answer for that. For how Seemant said that maybe a Mahabharat for like with a PUBG setting would help. I'm not sure about that. I will not attempt that game. So I'm a very what do you call pessimistic in terms of when I'm picking games. So I will not pick that game especially, but I will look for something which is very easy to use for these guys, something that they can learn in just 2 minutes or something like that. Coin Master is a very good example of a game which does not have any cultural reference to these guys, but it is just a 2-minute game. So you pick that game and you learn that game. So anything that is easy to understand, very casual in nature, and they can collaborate with their friends is something tier 2 will adopt.
Yeah, I think you hit it. One of the easy ones, exactly as you said, is the cultural reference. Like if there's something they played offline, Ludo, Carom, right, and things of that sort, those things get picked up much sooner than a conceptual role-playing game of that sort. But that's one thing you can just keep in mind, right? The culture. If you can transpose the culture, you might do well.
Absolutely.
Wow. No, I'm just so surprised because when I thought a gamer and what we call a whale, right, like a heavy spender in gaming, I thought it would be like a young urban metro male, really into the gaming space. I didn't expect it to be either Panwala or a middle-aged woman in small town India. So that's genuinely fascinating stuff. Makes you really wonder and rethink how you prioritize maybe the in-app purchase part of it. Also on the advertising part though. So is it fair to say, and sorry, I'm trying to oversimplify here, but is it fair to say that maybe for small town users, because the limited sources of entertainment, we can tweak it such that the monetization is more directly via in-app purchase or microtransaction versus maybe naturally you can't do that, right? In a metro, you can't say that it'll be rewarded video because metro audiences might be more premium, but you can't oversimplify that way either, can you? No. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. But that's genuinely interesting. Sorry, I was just sidetracked because of the fact that it's far more complex than I thought. 47 minutes before this, I thought it was much simpler space, but I realized it is definitely more complicated. Um, so one last question. I know we're slightly out of time, but see, in Western markets, we hear that free to play is going to be the future, and they're all pivoting towards that. Now here, Arpit, you brought out that the conversion of a person going free to actually making a purchase might be 1% for certain categories, maybe certain higher, might be slightly higher for real money games. But essentially, what is our view in India though? I mean, if you had to give a guidance to a developer here, would you suggest maybe looking at the microtransaction route first, or growing the base and trying and having the ad supported way, or what would be maybe your guidance to give them? And Rahul, Seemant, Afsar, if I can maybe lean on you to start this off because of the some of the points that you raised earlier.
Okay. If you are starting out a new game, obviously, see, ad revenue would only become substantial once you have enough volumes and enough longevity of a user on the app, which will take some time for it to happen. Um, again, there is no overnight success that you would get in building a game. So I think that is something that I want to really put out there, like at the outset, right? Um, having microtransactions would also, I think, would be the right way to start. We have tried our hands with having ad support, and we've started in fact, we started with microtransactions from the day one. And at one point in time, we actually built a ad-supported model as well for our free gamers, because there's a good substantial amount of people who play for free before they really go and commit money into the platform. Uh, what we've noticed is that when we introduced ads, again, it's just a flavor of our game, maybe. When we introduced app, the conversions from free to paid actually decreased and the churn increased, because I think it probably was somewhere getting in the way of their experience. Maybe it was kind of breaking their momentum at one point in time, because you have to place that ad somewhere, right? So what we did is we completely removed the ad. We made it absolutely free to play. And we just actually put a very small opportunity cost nudge at the end of the game. So when you win a level, instead of just saying, hey, you know what, congratulations, you won, we also tell you that, if you were paying for this game, you could have won. This is what your opportunity cost could have been. You could have won $50 if you were to play, if this was a 5 rupee game for you right now, right? So when they see that nudge again and again and again and again as they're winning and winning and winning, at one point of time they get that confidence and say, you know what, why don't we give that a shot? So I think if you were to ask from what we have learned from our story, we started with microtransactions from day one. It has helped us. It was a steady growth. I won't say it was. We started out with almost a 5%, 4 to 5% conversion from free to paid, which increased to 8%, which increased to 15%, and now it is at 18%. So, but we have zero ads on our app. We've tried that route, didn't work. When we said that let the experience be completely trouble free, let them get that paid experience right at the outset. so that they can feel that, all right, now in order to continue, in order to now get to the next level of making money, let's top up that wallet inside the app. So if I were to come with it, yes, does that model not work? It works. Yes, it worked for us. I'm sure it worked for a lot of other people. And I'm also sure that there would be many examples of the other model working as well, having ads right on day one. But yes, the CPCs right now are still very, very low in India. The money you're earning from ads would not make sense till you have a decent amount of volumes. You also have to understand what is your cost of acquisition for a customer, because those are still high, right? So for a paid customer, you can be paying anywhere from $150 to $500 to $2,000, depending upon your game, right? Is there enough longevity of the user on the app to recover that money through advertisements? It'll be difficult.
I just want to add, right now in India, the highest money-making business model is the real money games.
Yes.
Ads don't do as much, in-app purchase don't do as much, right? So there's a reason why we're in real money gaming. Other companies are in it. Everyone's trying. Those who are doing free-to-play launch real money versions because it's just the way it is, right? People have an affinity to receiving value back, especially if that value is back in money for the game played and the time they spent. So the easiest thing you can do for your game is if you can figure out a way for it to be a skill game that people can play against each other and win real money. That will kick you off right away. Then you can sort of go from there and figure out if you want to go with ads or you want to go with in-app purchase and what else you want to add to it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So just adding to
yes,
that.
Afsar, go ahead.
I totally appreciate real money gaming, and we are specifically into free to play. And over the period of time in the last 3 years, 3.5 years that I have been in this industry, and if especially when I'm looking at the Indian audience, the microtransactions that they are doing, I've seen that graph going up and up, and it might not be as big as real money game, but it's actually growing a lot. And in terms of ads, again, ads follow the place where you're getting more money, right? The more money people are spending on IP or any other places, the more ads will give you in terms of revenue. That's the simple mathematics why ads work and why you can be monetized, make money from ads, right? So as the IP transactions, or I can talk about IP only. So IP transactions, as they grow further in India, you'll see ad monetization improving in terms of CPMs, and that will help a lot to the developers coming in later on in the game.
Yeah, just last 30-second add to that. Globally, mobile gaming is a $70 billion industry, right? And there are different business models which work. And what I would say is publishers need to think what works for which type of user. If in a lot of business models, as Seemant and Rahul said, are working really great for Indian users. But what publishers need to keep in mind that what business model they can produce at what speed, and as Afsar said, right, there are various users who are willing to pay via IAP or get very good CPMs internationally. In India, I think yes, CPMs are challenged. Building more engaging content is the way to do it. And as Seemant and Rahul mentioned, that that's a one type of engagement which is really paying off in India.
Super. I think we're beyond time, and I see you're giving me the look. So I think
Yes,
it's been a
gentlemen, we have
fantastic
stretched a
conversation.
bit.
But I'm going to hand it back to Amit, you, and thank you all. It's been a lovely discussion. I've learned a lot.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. We have learned as well, I bet.
Thanks, Prithvi, for your help to moderate this session, and thank everyone, if you gentlemen, for such an engaging session. We really enjoyed it as much as we believe the audience did. So sad that we have to cut it short. With that, we end this session. Stay safe. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.